The British public will not wait 5 years for an election, Andy. I'm afraid they ain't got much power to decide it one way or the other. The only person who can call an election these days is the Prime Minister. Anyway, he says half of the actual Labour voters now want them out. A government cannot continue like that. Nigel Farage will be the Prime Minister within a year. You know what, Andy? They say don't predict anything about British politics. They say you should never predict anything. I am willing to predict, in fact, I'll bet you my mortgage, that will not be true. Nigel Farage will not be the Prime Minister by December 2025. Why do I have a feeling that clip is going to be used to haunt me? No.
Okay, so the suggestion that Nigel Farage could become Prime Minister by 2025 has resurfaced. This time, courtesy of a listener to the Lewis Goodall Show. Whilst it's an entertaining idea for some, the political realities of such a scenario, to put it mildly, are fantastical. Farage's supporters, while passionate, seem to harbour a delusional optimism about his political prospects. Let's unpack why this notion is so detached from reality. For Nigel Farage to become Prime Minister, the first prerequisite that would have to be a general election. And under the current system, the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, has the sole authority to call one before the scheduled date. Starmer has no incentive whatsoever to bring forward an election, especially given Labour's current challenges. Why would Labour MPs, many holding slim majorities, pressure Starmer to call an early vote? Doing so would be political suicide for him and them, as it risks losing their seats to rivals, including Farage's Reform UK. The belief that political and public anger alone can force government to call an election is misguided. We've seen this play out before. Boris Johnson faced immense pressure to call an election amidst widespread dissatisfaction, but resisted. Liz Truss, during her brief tenure, also resisted calls for an election. Rishi Sunak faced weekly demands during PMQs to call one and stood firm. Public dissatisfaction alone does not override the strategic rights and interests of those in power. Even if in some fantastical scenario a general election were called, the path for Reform UK to achieve the dominance required to elevate Farage down the street is fraught with improbabilities. Reform UK would need an unprecedented surge in support, eclipsing Labour and the Conservatives to win the most seats. The current polling, while showing an uptick for Reform UK, does not suggest anything close to such a seismic shift. Farage remains a divisive figure, adored by some, but loathed by many. His prominence could galvanise opposition votes to keep him and his party out of power. Moreover, Farage's success would depend not only on discontent with Labour, but also on Reform UK's ability to present credible solutions to the country's challenges. Simply capitalising on dissatisfaction isn't enough, although it apparently was enough for Labour to get into power. Voters need to believe that Reform UK is a viable alternative, which is a tall order given the party's lack of substantial track record. It's important to recognise the cognitive bias at play here. Farage's supporters, while assuming that their anger and their frustration are universally shared, and that this will translate into electoral success. However, voter behaviour is far more complex. Anger at the status quo can manifest in votes for a variety of parties, not just Reform UK. Many disillusioned voters could turn to the Greens, the Liberal Democrats, or even go back to the bloody Conservatives. But in summary, whilst it's fun to speculate about a Nigel Farage premiership, which I've said many times on the channel, the best way to get rid of these populist ideologues is to basically give them all the power they want and let them hang themselves with it. The reality is that such an outcome is highly unlikely. It requires a hell of a lot of unlikely events, and it requires a hell of a surge in support for Reform UK, which won't happen right now. But tell me what you think. Do you reckon Nigel Farage could be Prime Minister one day? And what would it look like? But tell me what you think. I've been Jake from Just Jake. As always, I'll see you next time, and subscribe to the channel. You actually made it to the end of the video. If you would like to subscribe to the channel, which, why haven't you already, is somewhere over there. And also, if you want to watch more videos, also check out over there. I've been Jake from Just Jake. See you later.